All right, welcome back to the pickup episode number 22. We're gonna have some back-to-backs actually for you guys. We're gonna have episode 22 today and episode 23 tomorrow. So right now we're recording this just around 8:30 on Thursday, June 10th. We've got the Milwaukee Brooklyn game going on right now, the Utah Clippers game going on later, a bunch of good playoff basketball going on right now, and I'm pumped for it. How we doing, Drew?
We're doing good. I'm excited for this episode. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm excited to bang out two in a row.
Yeah. Be a lot of fun. And me and Drew actually were just hanging out the past couple days, back down in Columbia again, hit up Charleston for a day too. Really good time. So I believe, even though we've just been talking a lot for the past couple days, that you have another question for me.
I do. I tend to not ask questions so that I have them for here. Um, but my question of the day for you is the Super Regionals coming up this week. They are starting, if I'm not wrong, tomorrow on the 11th. It
Mm-hmm.
is Fayetteville, Austin, Lubbock, Starkville, Tucson, Columbia, Nashville, and Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is with all of those teams that have been mentioned, there are four states that have multiple teams: North
Yeah.
Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Mississippi. Of
Mm-hmm.
those four states, which do you believe is the better combination of teams? NC State and ECU in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt and Tennessee, Ole Miss and Mississippi State in Mississippi, or Texas Tech, Dallas Baptist in Texas.
Yeah, that's tough. I think I can narrow it down pretty quickly to like Tennessee or Mississippi. I think that's pretty easy. But
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna go with Tennessee. I think I gotta go with Vanderbilt and Tennessee as a better duo than Ole Miss and Mississippi State, in my opinion, because we know Vanderbilt just has recruits all up and down the board, bunch of really good guys. And I mean Tennessee's the number three team in the country too. So they're obviously not shabby at all. And I mean, we know how good Mississippi State and Ole Miss is, but I think I'll just have to go with Vanderbilt and Tennessee because those two teams are just so good.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I also believe that I would take Tennessee. It's kind of easy, quick to narrow it down to those two, just considering how good the combination of those two teams are in
Hmm.
each state. I just believe that Vandy and Tennessee are better all around teams, top to
Yeah.
bottom, than Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
Hmm.
Tennessee's got pitching, and they can make a comeback in the ninth, where Ole Miss is a little bit of you get one or the other sometimes, except for Tim Elko, he's always there. Um, who now has multiple? He had two grand slams with a torn ACL in the regionals,
Hmm.
so I'm excited to see his super regional play. To be honest, and then Vandy, Kumar, Jack, those guys are insane. And then Isaiah Thomas in that order, and Bankwell, I think it is, uh,
Hmm.
stole 50 something bases this year. So, I mean, that's an insane kind of combination. You got both every day. And then Mississippi State's just power arms, but the offensive side of the ball for Mississippi State is sometimes lacking.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that goes. But like we said, the average for Vandy this year was 300. They hit 300 as a team, and their ERA was under 4, which is pretty good average.
Yeah.
And then Mississippi State hit 283, and the ERA was just under 4. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And then Ole Miss hit just under 300 with about a 4.5 ERA. So it'll be interesting to see how those teams kind of play in the supers and how they look all around.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some college baseball later in the podcast, but now I'm going to go over to hot tub and ice tub. So I'll start off with my hot tub. So one, I'm actually going to put in the hot tub the whole MLB foreign substance thing because I feel like it's gaining traction like to the MLB. It's giving them a lot of attention on national news, and it's just giving the MLB a lot of like TV time that they have not had over the past couple years. Like this is the biggest thing that has happened in the MLB scandal wise since the steroid era, what 20 something, 30 something years ago. And as like much as like confusing, as much confusion as there can be, and right or wrong, and just kind of how you feel about that, I think it's good for the sport in general because it's bringing popularity and it's bringing attention. And then Garrett Cole, who was also seems to be one of the guys that was using the spider tack. I'm going to put him in the hot tub too because last night Josh Donaldson was saying he was going to put out a list of guys he was going to rat out that use foreign substances. And Garrett Cole struck him out 2 out of the 3 times and got him out 3 out of the 3 times that he faced Josh Donaldson in the game last night. So Josh Donaldson probably shouldn't have opened his mouth because Garrett Cole had a little extra mustard going on all those balls that he had thrown by. But it was really interesting last night that Garrett Cole's spin rate was the lowest out of any start that he has had over the last 2 seasons after they came out with the whole new 10-game suspension thing. So that's definitely interesting to see that. But he was still averaging his fastball average. I think it was 98 point something last night, still multiple times over 100. But I just think as bad, I guess, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't when it comes to something like that. Like it's really good for baseball to get this popularity from it, but it's also a tough thing for them to deal with. But I think baseball needs the popularity and the media attention more than anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see both sides. I think it's kind of an issue now to where you kind of just have to pick one and run with it. There is no going back from the banning a substance to just being okay with it. You just, and Rob Manfred has kind of put the pace in play, if you will, of a 10-game suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So we know where we stand with that. As fans, we understand what's coming. And as athletes and as pitchers in the major leagues, you understand what's going to come your way if you get caught doing it. So I still think people are going to do it. I still think they're going to get sneakier and find a way to do it anyway. It'll be interesting to see that. But my hot tub.
Question real quick. So we've seen it on the neck, we've seen it on the hat, we've seen it on the glove. You were a pitcher. If you had to try and conceal this somewhere, do you have a specific spot you would try and go to at this point? Where would you think to go now?
So, and this is strictly just if they gave out the what is the cards? The shifts. What's the little card? I can't remember. I can't think of the name.
Scorecard?
No, it's the it's just the cards that all the players have that looks at shifts. The scouting report. They give out those little cards. I think if the pitcher were to have one, I think you could layer kind of the front side or back side of that with tar, spider tack, whatever, and then you could go to you could go to that every at bat. So at least the first little bit you're gonna get that, and then it's gonna peel off into the back of your pants. So you're gonna have it in that back pocket area. I think is where the next place we're gonna see it is.
Yeah, something I was thinking about too, which I don't think you'd be able to do it too often because it would eventually get noticeable. But if you put it on the bottom of your jersey where it's tucked into your pants and you're just acting like you're repositioning your jersey or retucking in your jersey, and then you could have it there too. But if you're retucking in your jersey after every 2 or 3 pitches, then it starts looking kind of sketch.
Yeah, that's a not a bad idea. It's just harder, like you said, because it's going to get noticed easier, a lot quicker.
Yeah, because the spotlight's all on them right now. So.
Oh yeah, but my hot tub this week, and it was kind of a cool thing, is Oklahoma. The Oklahoma's team won the World Series for softball today. Actually, just earlier they beat Florida State 5-1. So that was that was a really, really cool game to watch. Their pitcher is outstanding. And then Giselle Jazar, she's a pretty good baseball player, or a pretty good softball player, excuse me. She did outstanding again today. And she actually threw 31 innings in the World Series. So let that sink in. She pitched 31 innings. She had 38 strikeouts and only walked 8 and had a .89 ERA. Those are DeGrom numbers.
Yeah.
Those are DeGrom numbers. So it was cool to watch them. Their fifth national championship of in school history. So
Hmm.
it was a cool thing to watch that today. Earlier, I got to pay some attention to that, but I was kind of cool to see how that went for them because Florida State's a good team. Oklahoma was just really overpowering all year. They had one loss in the World Series or in the whole tournament, and then went on a tear. They had 15 home runs in the College World Series, which is
Jeez.
a record. So, I mean, it was cool to watch them just really play this game from start to finish in the World Series.
Yeah. That's crazy impressive. So going to my ice tub. Once again, I hate having to do this. I had to do it last week, but we continue to have a professional baseball team in the MLB that probably should not be there, which is sadly my Pittsburgh Pirates just a couple weeks ago. If you remember, Will Craig could have just touched first base to end the inning, decides to get in a rundown with Fernando Tatis Jr. They end up scoring a run off of it. Well, the Pirates are playing the Los Angeles Dodgers a couple days ago, top five team in the MLB, and it would be huge to get out to a first inning jump, right? Cabrian Hayes, our like best young player coming up, probably will be our best player in a couple years, if not already. Hits a home run in the first inning. Huge way to get on the board. But what does he do? He forgets to step on first base, circling around it. He oversteps it and steps around the bag on the outside towards right field and just flat out misses it. And the Dodgers challenge it. And it goes from being 1-0 in the first inning to being an out. Ridiculous. How are you this old? 24, I think he is, and you miss first base on a home run. Like, all you have to do, that's the hardest part about hitting a home run, is just touching the four bases. And that's probably the easiest thing you can do in baseball. I don't understand. It's tough to watch this team. It's tough to be a Pittsburgh sports fan in general these past couple months, whether it's the 1-5 for the Steelers, the Penguins getting bounced out in the first round the last 3 years, and then now the Pirates just being a triple A team, borderline double A team, playing in the MLB and just making stupid decision after stupid decision. And none of the prospects seem to work out. Mitch Keller's putting up insane numbers in triple A, gets absolutely obliterated in the MLB for the last two seasons. And it's tough, man. It's bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun for everybody else in the Central to watch, but I can see where you're getting at, and it's unfortunate because yeah, I root for the Cincinnati team, so we're not too far off. We don't look that bad, but we don't necessarily get any like much better results. Except we did sweep the Cardinals in a 4 game, which was big, and we took 1 of 3 from the Brewers, which unfortunate, but we knocked them out of first place, so that helps.
Yeah.
Um, but my ice bath this week is kind of just I'm gonna throw Jokic into the ice bath,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason for that is he won the MVP. That's outstanding. You love that. And then DeAndre Ayton outplayed him in the first game of that series. He just looked better from start to finish in that game, in my opinion. He looked like a better basketball player than Jokic did. So, I mean, to me, it was kind of upsetting to watch the MVP get outplayed and worked by a kid that's 22, 23 years old. So, I mean, it was just kind of interesting to watch that. It was the night after he got MVP. So,
Yeah, I mean it's also tough because Phoenix has so many more playmakers. Like with Denver, you can literally just double team Jokic every time, or just put your full focus on him because Jamal Murray's out, Will Barton's been out, and there's not really anybody else to worry about. Michael Porter Jr., which we'll talk about here in a minute, had a really bad night. Um, on that
started out
specific
hot.
game, shooting only 3 of 13 in that last game, which is not good at all compared to where DeAndre's a bunch of guys. But I definitely see what you're saying there. And then also, I just thought this was funny. I just want to mention this. I'm sure if you've been on social media, you've probably seen this. But Nikola Jokic was drafted. I think it was like the 11th pick in the second round, and they were literally playing a Taco Bell quesarito commercial when he got drafted. Like there wasn't even showing anybody on. Like it's like when you get to the sixth or seventh round of the NFL draft, and there's just guys that are going like while they're doing commercial breaks and stuff like that. It was like that, and there was a Taco Bell quesarito commercial going on for the guy that ended up being the MVP like 6 years later.
So funny. That is
That's
so funny.
that's
The
hilarious.
the best, just like draft little thing, is the funniest thing is when we ate Firehouse during rounds 3 and 4 of like the
Hmm.
16 draft or the 17 draft, and we were at Firehouse eating when I think it was the Browns had a pick, and then they played a Firehouse commercial on the TV, and I can't remember who the pick was. I think it might have been man, it was a receiver that they got rid of,
Yeah.
but it was so funny because we watched a commercial run while a guy got picked, and that was the first time that like I really realized that okay, they do just take breaks, and then
Yeah.
now it doesn't feel as bad when you're watching the NFL draft. You see a commercial, it's like, oh, this dude was good, we just didn't get to see him.
Yeah, that would really suck though. Like this is all you've been waiting for your whole life. And like, yeah, getting drafted is awesome, but that you don't even get to see it on like TV or anything like that. Like, because I know they don't have cameras set up everywhere when you get into the later rounds, but they still have like some type of like video highlight reel pictures or like something like that. And that's so cool to
Yeah,
see. And
they've
then for it just to be a Taco Bell commercial, and this dude's from Serbia, not even from America, and probably just immediately pissed off coming over here. Like, these guys can't even show me the time of day to show my face on here. I'm literally getting drafted during a Taco Bell quesarito commercial, let alone probably not even hearing of Taco Bell in his life before.
yeah. That's so
So
funny.
that's kind of going to lead us into the NBA. But before we go into the games, just looking back, our picks were pretty darn like close, and you might have been 100%. So we both picked Jordan Clarkson for sixth man of the year, which
Mhm.
happened. I think we both picked Julius Randle for most improved, which
Yeah.
happened. We both picked Jokic for MVP, which
No.
happened. Or no, you didn't.
Well, I may have changed, but I know in the beginning I was rolling with Embiid, but I think I did change since he was hurt.
Okay, and then I think you had Tom Thibodeau for Coach of the Year, the Knicks
Yeah.
coach, who won.
Yeah.
But then I had Juwan Howard all year, the Phoenix Suns head coach, who I still think probably should have won. But it's definitely understandable. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we were pretty darn close there.
Yeah. If one of us wasn't 100%, then we were really close.
Yeah, I think we both won essentially what 3 out of 4. But it was also one of those years where it was a little bit more clear cut because of the amount of injuries and just things like that. Like Kevin Durant's out for a long time, James Harden's out for a long time, LeBron missed a lot of time. Like everybody was
Yeah, he
missing
did.
time this year because of the condensed schedule. So I mean, Jokic literally played every single game of that 72 game season, which is extremely impressive considering for a guy that while he's in shape, he's not like the best like structural figure. Like he weighed 300 pounds just like what 7, 8 years ago. And I mean, he'll continue to drop weight too. So it'll be interesting to see like what he looks like in a few more years. So speaking of that series, we have the Phoenix Suns playing the Denver Nuggets. The Phoenix Suns have won me a good bit of money these first couple games. They're 2-0 up in the series. It's been a good ride betting on them, very stress free. So we're gonna look at game two because that was the most recent one, which was what just last night. And you have Mikal Bridges going 5 of 12, which wasn't great, but his playmaking and passing ability and just overall is really good. Then you have DeAndre Ayton who went 6 of 10, 15 points. Chris Paul 6 of 10, 17 points. You have Devin Booker putting up 18 with 10 rebounds for Devin Booker, which is insane. And you also had Chris Paul putting up 15 assists with a plus 26 plus minus, which is if you look at this Phoenix Suns starting lineup, you have Chris Paul, who's got a plus 26 plus minus for that game. You've got Mikal Bridges, who got a plus 28 plus minus. Devin Booker plus 16, Jay Crowder plus 20, and DeAndre Ayton plus 16. Anytime all five of your starters are in the positive, let alone 16 and over in the positive, you're definitely going to win the game, which is great. And then your bench, too, you have four guys that were in the positive. You have Dario Saric, who's a plus 15 plus minus, Trilson Craig plus 13, and Cam Johnson at plus 12, and then Cameron Payne at plus 9, who's really come onto the scene lately. But a guy who I know you like, and we've talked about him before, and you said you thought he was one of the keys to the series, is Jay Crowder is hitting his threes right now. And when Jay Crowder is hitting his threes, that makes us a totally different team. He went 4 of 5 from the field and 3 of 4 from three last night. And somewhere similar to that the game before, definitely like over 500 in the 3 point category. So starting
Yeah, the
off with the
biggest
Suns, it's just it's big. All of their players are like doing what they need to do. They're clicking at the right time.
Yeah, and they brought Chris Paul in to be the secondary for Devin Booker and to help him and then facilitate and dish the ball and just kind of be active on the offensive side. And they had 27 assists total last
Mm-hmm.
night. Chris Paul had 15 of those. He had more than the rest of the team combined. That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what Chris Paul needs to do for them to
Mm-hmm.
be able to compete for the championship. I'm be
Yeah.
honest. If they, and I'm not saying that they will sweep this series. That's a bold thing to say, but if they sweep this series, they will win the championship. And I
Yeah.
get it. I know that uh, that there's a lot and that Brooklyn has a lot, but also I feel with Chris Paul, his experience and condition and ability on the defensive side, he can guard Kyrie. So could Devin Booker. Devin Booker can definitely hang with uh, James Harden, and then you can switch DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder can throw his weight into KD just like he did LeBron, and then
Yeah.
you can use DeAndre Ayton's stretch to guard KD. So I think there's a definite ability to take a good series between those two teams.
Yeah, and if you look at their team stats, I mean, just overall, they're putting up great numbers. If we just do a side by side between this last game before we head into talking about Denver, Phoenix shot 48% from the field. Great. 47.5% from the 3-point line. Great. 88% from the free throw line. They out rebounded Denver 52 to 46. They out assisted them. They had less turnovers, less fouls, more fast break points, more points in the paint. I mean, just absolutely dominated in every single category. And it's just because this team's so great, like 1 through 12. Because another thing you look at when you're looking at a box score or a team, you see Denver, who got all of their production from two guys, which wasn't even good. You had Jokic put up 11 and Michael Porter put up 11. And then their other guys in their starting lineup put up 6, 3, and 6. Compared to what I just said about Phoenix, that was 11, 16, 15, 17, 18. Seeing that like evenness out of those five guys is huge. And that's a pretty telling sign for a championship team when you can have every single guy on your team contribute and you're not just relying on one guy or two guys.
Oh yeah, and it makes a difference because we could talk about the Hawks' first game. Trey Young had 35, and the next closest was 21, and John Collins. And that's good that you have two guys, and we had six that went into double digits, and that's great. It was just like this kind of like what we're talking about now. But
Mm-hmm.
with this team, with this team, they went 18, 17, 16, 15, 11. So I mean, and 10. So it's you're getting points wherever you look, consistent points,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I think that's kind of like what you said. It's a more balanced, even spread team than it is going like, okay, we need a three, throw to this guy. If it's
Yeah.
go to three, you can pass it to Mikal, Crowder, Booker, or Paul, and you assume it's going in right now because they're
Mm-hmm.
just that hot at this moment. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
47.5% from three is a heat night.
Yeah. And I mean, besides Brooklyn, just because of the talent that they have in those individual players, I would put Phoenix just under them at number two for teams that I would most not want to face right now. We'll get to them in a
Oh yeah.
second. And as much as I love Utah, I would still put Phoenix at number two as teams I don't want to face. So then looking at Denver, exact opposite story. They only had three guys in the positive of plus minus, and those guys played a combined 18 minutes, which is absolutely nothing. But their starting lineup was Gordon minus 17, Porter Jr. minus 26, Jokic minus 14, Composer minus 13, and Austin Rivers minus 21. And I just read off the points before. And while Nikola Jokic is good, he put up 24 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, and he's great at what he does. I don't think a center can carry a team like a point guard. Like we see Steph Curry took the team almost into out of the play-in into the playoffs. We saw Dame Lillard put literally the whole entire team on his back, scoring over half of their points, it seemed like at sometimes, and taking them to a game 7. We see guards. I mean, we saw James Harden in Houston be able to do that. I don't think a center can carry a team as much as a point guard, shooting guard, or maybe even a small forward can. And I think that's their biggest downfall. And I don't really know how high I'm on this team in general. I like Michael Porter Jr., but he's putting up nights, like I just said, 3 of 13, 2 of 9 from three, and he's had quite a few stinkers. And Jamal Murray, like, yes, he was great in the bubble, but he just hasn't done much besides that. He was disappointing the years before. He was disappointing in this regular season. And I think Denver's kind of just a regular season team that's going to be 4 or 5 for the next few years, but I don't see them really ever winning a championship. I think when James Harden was on the trading block, I think they needed to get James Harden because the centerpiece of that trade would have had Michael Porter Jr. in there, probably Will Barton, and maybe a Austin Rivers, and then some draft picks, and then that would have given you a lineup of Jamal Murray and James Harden and Nikola Jokic, which I think that is a championship seeming roster, at least in the next few years. Like they're contenders at least, but they didn't pull that move. They don't have that second superstar, and we saw Shaq. Shaq never won a championship on his own. He had Dwayne Wade in Miami on the back end of his career. He had Kobe in LA. Centers just, they can't do it all by themselves. They need that guard.
Yeah, they need that two guard or the one that can run like a two. And I think the other big thing is Aaron Gordon has almost been non-existent this series.
Yeah.
You know, he dropped 6, and then actually that's not true. He had 18 in the first game, but the second game he was non-existent
And he
really.
got bullied
And
by Jay Crowder when he tried to push
yeah,
it.
yeah. So I mean, that's what's tough is I think that Aaron Gordon needs to step up and be able to in 20 minutes put double digits on the board.
He had
You know,
one rebound last game for a power
yeah,
forward. One
yeah,
rebound.
yeah. So that's tough because it's not like the Suns. It's not like Jokic is dropping 20 rebounds and the rest of the team is getting 18. You know,
Yeah.
he's getting out rebounded by the rest of the team, but and I get it's a little different, but Chris Paul can dish out 15 assists. The rest of the team doesn't have to do anything. You know, I think we need to see Aaron Gordon where Porter Jr. is at 6 rebounds or where Green and Morris are with 5. He's got to have at least 5, in my opinion, for them to be competitive at the offensive side. Whether it's just defensive rebounds or whether it's just offensive rebounds, it makes a difference when you can count on 2 guys to come down with the ball instead of 1.
Yeah, and you cannot shoot 32% from three and expect to win a ball game. So
Yeah, no, you definitely can.
yeah, so you can tell me what you think after this, but I'm gonna call the Suns. I think Denver will squeak out one just because I think in the semifinals it's too hard to call a sweep. So I'm gonna say Suns in 5.
I'm gonna call the sweep, Suns in 4.
Okay.
I'll make the bold play.
Yeah, my thing is I'm just thinking maybe
I
game
would never I
three.
would I would never bet on that, but
No, I was just
for
thinking
this
maybe
point,
game three because Phoenix was playing in Phoenix. They were playing in LA, low altitudes, right around sea level. Now they're going to go to Denver where the air is a little bit thinner, mile high city. And maybe, and Denver's obviously more used to that. And maybe Denver can just catch them on like a game 3 or game 4 when they're just a little bit
yeah.
more out of energy or a little bit tired. Going a little bit more in
I'm
depth there than just basketball, talking about altitude
yeah,
and oxygen and all, but it's a real
but I
thing.
got a
Like it's with the
I got a
Denver
serious
Broncos, it's a thing
well,
too.
well I got a question because I was gonna say like the Broncos it's football, and
Yeah.
then we'll even use the Rockies because they get kind of that same
Yeah.
that makes the ball it's different playing there, but the Denver it's indoors. Do you like and I don't know this kind of science stuff, but like does it make that much of a difference if you're playing inside?
It does because of the altitude in general. You're just automatically higher no matter what. So the oxygen's just going to be thinner. Like going out to my parents' house in Idaho where they're at 6,000 feet. Like I can tell such a big difference. Like trying to breathe out there and running compared to like being in Boone, where even though we're higher than like you are at 3,300 feet, like I can definitely tell a difference going over to that 6,000 feet. It's definitely a real thing. So I mean, that's about the I mean, considering that's what we're kind of banking, or at least me banking a possible win on, I think that's pretty sure telling that Phoenix easily should win this series.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
go so now go into the other series in the West. We have the Utah Jazz versus the LA Clippers. Once again, love the Jazz. Been winning me money over the past couple days.
Oh yeah.
So the Jazz won 112 to 109 two nights ago, and it was a great game. So LA jumped off to the hot start, leading by almost 10 around halftime. They won the first half. They won the first quarter 25 to 18, second quarter 35 to 29, and then Utah bounced back and won the third quarter 32 to 19 and 33 to 20. And we talked about this off air. We were hanging out. That was the only thing I was a little bit worried about with Utah was because they literally the day they played was the 1 week point of being off since the Memphis game. So you could have looked at it as two ways. You have Utah could be off and could be rested, but you also have Utah's been off for a week. They could be out of the flow a little bit compared to where the Clippers just played game 7 and they're kind of in their rhythm a little bit and they're going in, but then you could also argue that they could be tired because of game 7. But I think we saw the first one where Utah came out a little bit rusty in the first half, and then they figured it out in the second half, got back in their flow, and they took off. And Donovan Mitchell looks like just a bona fide superstar. Went 16 to 30, put up 45 points and 5 assists, which is insane. Then you have Bogdan Bogdanovic, went 3 of 6 from three, put up 18. His overall great numbers. You had Rudy Gobert getting his 12 rebounds like he typically does. And then you cannot dismiss how important Jordan Clarkson is to this team, putting up 18 points off the bench, which is such a great thing to have when you can just have a guy come out there and just get you bucket after bucket after bucket off the bench.
Oh yeah, it's huge, and that's why I think it's going to be hard not to see a Jazz Suns series
Mm-hmm.
next. I mean, I I'd put a lot of money that it's going to be Jazz Suns next, but
Yeah.
I think a huge thing for tonight's game and the spread being at 2.5. I think an easy cover for that is, and I'm not saying give any more attention to Luke Kennard than he really needs. I think he just kind of had a great night the other night. I mean, he 18 points. I doubt he's going to drop 10 tonight,
Yeah.
and it's not his fault. I just don't think that he's the guy that they're going to look to off the bench. I think it's going to we see more from Terrence Mann and Rajo try and score the ball. Reggie Jackson played decent, 9 points, not terrible. But we can see this Clippers team is really reliant on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to score the basketball.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to do that with two guys in the 20s when Donovan Mitchell has more points total than they did combined.
Yeah. And
You
Paul
know,
George, ever since he diagnosed, not even diagnosed, but I guess since he called himself Playoff P and gave him that self nickname, what are we talking about here, dude?
yeah.
You literally bricked a shot off the side of the backboard last year in the bubble. It was an absolute disaster. And then you're shooting under 40%, in all statistical
That is awful.
categories, shooting wise in the playoffs. You went 4 of 17. You're a max contract player. I mean, that's pitiful. And then another thing I don't understand is why is Marcus Morris getting 14 shots and shooting 9 of them from three? He went 1 of 9 from three and shot the game winner. I know Kawhi Leonard got double teamed at the key and he had to pass it off, but that may be a Ty Lue thing. You've got to be able to orchestrate a play better at the end of the game to where Kawhi's open, because obviously Paul George isn't making the shot. And Lord knows we don't want Marcus Morris taking the final shot where he literally got it, had an open shot, tried to get with it, try to pump fake 6'11" Rudy Gobert, 50 million time defensive player of the year, pump fake again, and then shoot it and just get swatted right back in his face. Marcus Morris is the last person, or not the last person, but not the guy
he's low on the list.
Yeah, he's down there on the totem pole. You got to have Kawhi Leonard taking that shot, and then Paul George after that. You're two big dogs. You cannot have Marcus Morris. I have an issue with Marcus Morris taking 14 shots and 9 3-pointers. That can't happen.
I think another big piece to watch for tonight is Royce O'Neal. 11 boards, 3 assists, 8 points. I think we see a possible double-double from Royce tonight. I think he
call on
goes
your shot.
I think he goes 10 and 12, just like
Okay.
Rudy did in game 1. I think we see a better offensive night, overall, from
Mm-hmm.
Bogdanovich and Gobert. I think we
Yeah.
see Mitchell's points drop just because they're not going to need him to do that much tonight due
Mm-hmm.
to Gobert and Bogdanovich scoring more. I think O'Neal's going to put 10 and 12 in. We're going to see
Yeah.
kind of a repeat of Gobert's night from, what would that be, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my prediction on Royce tonight. So write it down, put it in the books. It's on tape. Count it.
So yeah, it's definitely should be a good series though. I think it's definitely gonna be a closer series than the Phoenix series, I think, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And like I said last week in our picks of the week, I'm taking Jazz no matter whether they were playing Dallas or Clippers, but I could definitely see this going to like probably 6 games. I don't think it'll go 7, but I think they'll get a couple from the Jazz.
Yeah, I'm looking at 5.
5.
I'll be
Well, the thing is
honest.
too,
I look at 5.
the Clippers haven't won a home playoff game in like a couple weeks now because them and
No.
Dallas did not win a single playoff game at home, which was just bizarre. That's one of the only
Yeah, and
times I think
it's
that's ever happened.
gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So now
So
going back to another game played that day, we're gonna go look at Atlanta and Philadelphia. So
yeah, yeah,
two very polar opposite games here. So we had
yeah,
Atlanta with the absolute blowout, which kind of got tight late, but not really.
yeah.
It did, but the Hawks still
Oh,
kind of had control.
it got scary if you were a Hawks fan watching that
Yeah.
because they started pressing and we started fumbling around the football or the basketball, and then they got easy points. Ben Simmons had 17. He probably had 6 in the last 2 minutes of the game, just from little quick, like easy layup buckets. But
Yeah.
I, it was just a big deal that Joel Embiid scored basically 40 and 39. 39 points,
No, he scored 40.
but the first game
Oh, the first game. My bad. I think we were talking about the second game.
39. So yeah, I mean it's basically the same, but it's tough when Ben Simmons can drop a double double and basically pick up the slack that Embiid didn't have on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple of steals, wasn't a bad game at the end, but the Hawks, the big story was Trae Young.
Yeah.
I mean, Trae Young is just playing lights out right now. Clint Capella, double double. Trae Young, double double. So it looked good for our side of the ball that game. Plus, they shot 42 and a half from the 3-point line and 95 at the free throw. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very, very good split. And 50% field goal is not awful, but it was a good game. One, game two definitely was a fall off game. That was kind of the game off for some people, I think.
Yeah, game two was interesting. It was like the Hawks starters, or I guess their two stars, and Trey Young and John Collins kind of came back down to earth, but the role players almost took a step up. But it was a shame
Yeah.
those couldn't happen at like the same time because you had Trey
Yeah.
Young. Well, yeah, he put up 21 points. He was 1 of 7 from three, which is definitely a steep drop off. And John
Yeah.
Collins went only 4 of 11 for 8 points. But then you have Bogdanovich, who put up
Yes.
14. You have Danilo Gallinari, who went 7 of 15 and 21 points, and Kevin
Yeah.
Huerter, who went 8 of 10 for 20 points. The bench
Yeah.
players and role guys stepped it up, but for Hawks fans, sadly, on the night that the starters decided to take a step down.
Yeah. We're gonna need to see Bogdan play well tomorrow. That's a
Definitely.
huge. That's a huge piece because that's a secret kind of like in the end, Trey's covered. Go to Bogdan. Bogdanovich is one of those players I believe that is, and I want to describe it. I'm not comparing him to Dwayne Wade, but in the style of how the game is on their two teams, he's a Dwayne Wade with LeBron because
Hmm.
he can score the basketball, but he's that second guy to LeBron, constant score. If it gets doubled, dish out to Bogdan, and you just have confidence in that. So I kind
Yeah.
of compare that to that situation. I don't think Bogdan's the same type of player, but I think in those two roles they fit very similar.
Hmm. Yeah. And looking at the 76ers side of it, I mean, the other point guard, kind of the same thing. If you would have told me Ben Simmons scored 4 points and the Sixers won the game, I would have been pretty surprised. I mean, he had a terrible night. He had 4 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds. Not Ben Simmons numbers at all, but Tobias Harris picked up the slack, 11 of 19 for 22 points, 6 boards, 4 assists. Joel Embiid, 13 of 25, 40 points and 13 rebounds, which is huge. Shane Milton went 5 of 8 for 14 off the bench. Seth Curry, big night, 8 of 13, 21 points. So this was kind of my thing to begin with. I think the Sixers are the better all-around team. I picked them to win this series personally, just because I think they're better. Like, I trust their role players and their stars more than I trust Atlanta's stars, because we think we know where Trae Young is going, but I feel like Joel Embiid has kind of already established what he is. I love Tobias as a third player, but Ben Simmons' inconsistencies just can't be there. And then I like their bench players better with like a Seth Curry. Tyrese Maxey's a lockdown defender. Matisse Thybulle can have his moments compared to having to rely on Danilo Gallinari and Clevin Herter, who, if he's off shooting wise, literally won't be able to do anything else because he's not a rebounder or a playmaker,
Yeah.
which is why I picked Philadelphia. But it's really just going to be whose stars are on and whose stars aren't for this series, I think.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to take a quick look at the current Bucks and Nets game that's on. The Bucks got it by one right now with 7:04 in the third. It's been a good night for Irving and Durant, and then Bruce Brown Jr. surprising, kind of out of the woodwork right now, is on track, pacing for that double double, and Brooke Lopez 0 points. Yeah, that's and Drew Holiday's only got five, 1-1 is a really, really rough thing to watch through 3 quarters of basketball.
Well, Giannis and Chris Middleton are literally making up 46 out of 54 or
Yeah,
55 of the Bucks points.
yeah.
But
So
don't forget this, dude. The Nets were losing 33-9 at one point in this game, and they have brought it all
yeah,
the way back to 55-54. I mean,
well,
this Bucks
it's
off at
insane.
zero, yeah, 0 points for Tucker, 5 for
But
Holiday, 0 for Lopez, 0 for Connaughton, 0 for Bryn Forbes, 4 for Bobby Portis, and 24 from Giannis with 11 rebounds, double double already. And then Chris Middleton at 22 points with 9 boards, which is by far the best game we've seen Chris Middleton
yeah,
play so
yeah.
far in the playoffs. But like, how do you first off deal up a 33-9 lead? And you can't. I don't know. I don't think they're going to win this game because you cannot have 40, 60, or 55 points from two guys. We just talked about how
Well, and that's what
spreading the points out is so important, and it's just the exact
and
opposite
for
right
and
now.
for those of us that aren't looking at the score sheet at the current moment, 55 points, like Steve said, 46 are coming from Middleton and Antetokounmpo. There are 2 other players that have scored. That makes 4 total in the game for the Bucks that have
Yeah,
put baskets down. That's terrible.
yeah,
Through 3 quarters, that's terrible. This
awful.
and you can tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I don't, but I feel like this is a really, really low scoring game for what we're used to,
Yeah, definitely
especially
compared to in
especially with
general.
the Nets.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, but that's a defense kind of winning right now, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, well, it's also KD. He's playing good. I mean, he's got 14.7 boards, but he has gone 5 of 17 from the field, which isn't great compared to what he normally does. But it's working. But like you said, Bruce Brown's been huge so far with 12 points. I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna have 3 guys probably over 20 points by the time this game's over. And
yeah, hundred
yeah, I
percent.
mean, just what a comeback in. I mean, we've talked about the Clippers before. They don't seem to really have like that will or drives. They seem to roll over pretty easy, and you could see Brooklyn and Kyrie maybe just mailing it in when you're down 33-9 because Kyrie seems to
Yeah,
mail it in quite a bit on basketball. And but they didn't. They came back and they fought themselves all the way back. And I mean, they were losing. Yeah, they were losing 30-11 at the end. They lost the first quarter 30-11, and Brooklyn won the second quarter 31-15, and they're currently up in the third quarter 12-10. Just a crazy comeback, and it's going to be
yeah.
an exciting ending of the game. So we just talked about the Brooklyn Nets, who are the super team right now in the NBA. So we're going to go back. We're just going to do a little bit of a draft. We picked 8 teams and probably kind of like 8 super teams that we're going to go through, and we're just going to pick which ones we would take like in order. So we've got the LeBron James Heat with LeBron. Ray Allen was there, obviously Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Then the Warriors with the KD, Steph, Draymond, and Iggy. The Kobe Shaq Lakers. And then the Spurs with Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard. And then we're going to have the Bulls, the Jordan Pippen Bulls, 95, 96, just insane team. And then a little throwback with the Celtics with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale. And then older Lakers team with Magic Johnson, Elgin Baylor, Kareem, absolutely insane team. And then the LeBron Cavaliers with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. So I will let you go first. And what out of those 8 teams would you pick?
I think the first one I'm gonna go with is the KD Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is the way that basketball is looked at right now is the deep ball's got to go in for you to be competitive.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to get the offensive rebound if it doesn't hit. And I think that team, we saw that team be able to do both those things outstandingly well with Draymond on the boards or KD on the boards, and then Steph, Clay, and Draymond and KD could all put the three up. So it was interesting to watch that. That's why I'm going to go with the KD Warriors.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite team I've ever been able to watch. I mean, just in general, that team was so fun to watch. And the team I want to pick is I wish we could have seen them play because it would have been so cool as the 95, 96, that Bulls team with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman. I mean, you can't really go wrong taking the GOAT and that whole team because the dynamic of Steph Curry out there splashing threes. You have Steve Kerr, who's his coach now, who was a sharpshooter back in the day. Then you have Michael Jordan getting clamped, not probably not clamped up, but Klay Thompson, who's one of the best guard defenders in the game, top 3 on Jordan, who's insane. You've got Scottie Pippen and Kevin Durant going back and forth. And then what would be better than anything is Dennis Rodman and Draymond Green going back and forth at each other all night long, which would be absolutely hilarious and entertaining to watch. And I mean, the team's just ridiculous. So I'm going to go with that team first. So you're up for number 2.
Okay. For two, I'm going to go to LeBron Heat.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going to go with that team is because I think that was a better top to bottom, including reserves and bench, than what the Warriors had from top to bottom. But the LeBron and Wade with Shane Battier,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Bosh and Ray Allen. That's one of the best starting fives of all time on the court from
Yeah.
1 to 5. So I think they probably could have competed with anybody in today's game or the couple of maybe a decade before too. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great basketball team. So I'm gonna go with the LeBron Heat.
Okay. So the next team I'm going with is a team that might have been perhaps the deepest team we've seen in the NBA, like 1 through 12. And I'm going to go with I love using them on 2K2, the San Antonio Spurs from just 10 years ago. Because you have Tony Parker, you have Marco Bellinelli, Danny Green, who could play the shooting guard Danny Green was a lot better at that time. Um, Sharpshooters. You had the assassin Kawhi Leonard going. You have one of the all-time great forwards and Tim Duncan out there. You have Boris Diaw coming off the bench, who was really good. You have Patty Mills, who was a spark plug three-pointer out there. You had Tiago Splitter, who was putting up good numbers back in the day then. And you had Matt Bonner, the redhead guy that would just come out that was 6'11 and just quick stroke, just bucket after bucket after bucket. I mean, that team was so fun to watch all the time. I mean, they were all just so good. Like they did not put out a player where you were like, "Oh, that dude kind of sucks." Like everybody you looked at and you were like, "Yeah, like this dude can play basketball and he can fill his role," which is what the Spurs' biggest thing was. You played your role and their guys always played their role and they were always able to find guys that could fit the roles they wanted. So, I'm going with the Spurs for number 2.
Yeah, notable mention for the Heat team is Birdman. Um,
Yeah.
the third team I'm going to go with is the Kobe Shaq Lakers.
Okay.
That's one of the most dominant, just pure duos of all time.
Yeah.
Like two players together is that's probably the most dominant that we've seen in a very long time, and we
Mhm.
will probably never see one that good in a long time.
Yeah.
I don't. There's definitely not one right now that I could say with confidence that would be as good on their own.
Yeah.
But I mean, those two were just really outstanding when they played together, and it was just you could tell that Shaq needed it for his career, and it helped Kobe continue to get better in his. So
Hmm. Yeah,
that's
definitely. So for my next pick, I'm also going to take a Lakers team, but I'm going to take the one with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They had James Worthy out there who was filthy, Bob McAdoo, Byron Scott, um, just an insane roster. Kurt Rambis was out there, and just a really great, I mean, in general team. I mean, the Showtime Lakers. I mean, that's where the name Showtime came from. Was from this team because you have the flashy Magic Johnson. Alley ups to Kareem. You had Kareem with the goggles on, kind of making his own little thing going on with that. And just a really fun team and a great team to watch in general. There's not too many better teams in history than the Showtime Lakers. And I think they won what 4 or 5 championships. I think five championships while they were in that Showtime era, and just a great all around team.
yeah, no, I agree. Um, Kind of
So
hard
now
to
it's down
argue.
to the Celtics or the
I know
Cavs.
which one I'm taking, and I'm very, very happy about that I got this one that got to come up. Is I'm going to take the Bird McHale Celtics.
Hmm.
I really like that team. Dennis Johnson, James Paxson at the point guard. Then Robert Parrish was 7-1,
Yeah.
just grabbing boards out of nowhere. And then obviously McHale and Bird. So I mean, it was just a great. An Otis Bird song could just
Hmm.
launch shots. So it was cool to watch. I mean, it was great. A great team, really all around. But the defensive side of that team was kind of an underrated defensive team, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I mean a great all around team. Bunch of legends on that team for
oh
sure.
yeah,
And that's like a team too that, yeah, they slipped down to 4, but in a lot of people's head, I mean, they could have been a lot higher than that. And I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if they were taken like 2 or 3 overall instead of 4 where they
yeah,
were. So I mean, that leaves me with a team where, I mean, yeah, I'm left with it, but I mean, another really good team. You have prime LeBron James on the Cavs with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, and this was Kyrie Irving when he was still just like a dog out there and wasn't just leaving his team and all his off the court crap. And you had J.R. Smith, who was good. And this was before about 3 years later when he couldn't remember what the score was. And then you had a productive Tristan Thompson at the time. Um, you had Joe Harris, who was a sharpshooter then, who's now the sharpshooter of Brooklyn. And then you had Matthew Dellavedova, who you mentioned a couple podcasts ago. That was a dog you could put on anybody. You had Channing Frye, Richard Jefferson, a lot of good guys off the bench. Just an overall like really good team. And I mean, that was just when LeBron was coming off of his Heat years and absolutely still just dominating the NBA. And that was kind of when he really started developing a 3-point shot too. Was on that Cleveland team. So just very dangerous team there. So
yeah, they
a lot
were.
of a lot of great teams there. So we talked about this earlier in the podcast. The foreign substance debacle going on in the MLB. Um, we've seen both sides of it. We've seen guys like Pete Alonso say he's fine with it because he's like, hey, if it helps them grip the ball when they're throwing 100 miles per hour to help not hit me, I'm okay with it. Then he went a little bit more conspiracy wise, talking about how he thinks the MLB changes the balls every year depending on the free agency, which was, I think, a little bit too far, a little bit of a reach
He's
there, in my opinion. What
you're
did you
not.
think about this Pete Alonso interview?
I'll be honest with you, and I don't like when guys go out of their way to say things that would make the sport or themselves try to be in a better light than what they are. Has been a crap of an athlete baseball player since he hit 50 home runs. He has not done anything worth
No,
mentioning
he
since.
hasn't. Not
So
at
you got to
all.
do something to keep yourself in the light of, oh, hey, I'm still here, just in case you forgot. You can't call people out for the free agent. What free agent class of pitchers has gone by, really, like huge names that have gone by that hit the market for free agency that would have affected him?
Yeah.
There hasn't been any. So he's just trying to do something and say something that keeps him in that idea mindset of, oh, I'm still here. So, no, I think he's an idiot. I think he's being completely dumb to say something like that. He hit 53 home runs as a rookie and hadn't done anything since. He had 16 and 57 games last year. Not a bad, but you hit like 210. That's if you want to be and I hate to do this, and I'm sorry to Quentin about this, but Joey Gallo doesn't come out and say stupid comments like this because Joey Gallo doesn't hit 346 and doesn't hit 67 home
If I
runs.
remember right, though, I think somebody thought he might this
Hey,
year.
I didn't say he was going to go way out, but he was a sleeper pick. I did say that. It's not turning the right way. But I just think that this is a dumb comment, and the whole article is kind of filled with him just trying to be relevant still, really. Because, yeah, we joke and Garrett Cole earlier, and he couldn't answer the question, did you use Spider Track? Well,
That was like the tell me you're guilty
I
without telling me you're
yeah,
guilty.
no kidding. I mean, like you answered the question and all you did was stutter for 2 seconds, so we
Hmm.
know. But if Pete Alonso, if somebody's like, "Do you still think you're a top baseball player?" He has to say yes. But this is his way of being relevant without letting his play speak for what it is. If he was good and he was still hitting 53 home runs and doing anything worth mentioning, the Mets would be better. That's
Yeah.
because they just brought over another superstar that should help you and bring you back to a great baseball level again, and he hasn't done anything. So, come on, Pete. Don't be an idiot. Do not be an idiot. I mean, they're not affecting any baseballs because, and he tried to throw it to like the offensive hitting, like the offensive class of Trevor Story, Corey Seager, and Baez at the shortstop position. Like, really? Those guys need help? I don't think so. I don't think Javier Baez needs help with anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and if he needs help with something, somebody's going to get it for him, whether it be tying a shoe or putting on pants or hitting a baseball. Somebody's going to find a way to help him. Same with Trevor Story and Carlos Correa. I don't think Carlos Correa should still be in the major leagues because he freaking cheated.
So
But
who are the
I
worst
mean,
interview out of the two? Pete Alonso or Garrett Cole?
well, Pete Alonso to me because he just kept going on to try and be like relevant, just kept trying to bring down basically the entire like organization of the MLB as a whole, which is dumb. Like, don't try and crap on something that happens within the MLB because you suck. That's the first off. Two, Garrett Cole was just being what Garrett Cole is. I mean, you're not going to get a true, solid, straight answer on that. But as PFT would say, just lie. Literally, just all you have to do is say, no, I've never used that. And then when they print it in this article, then that's the truth then is that you've never used it. So even if you lied, nobody cares anymore. It's done. You're in the back stands instead of the front row.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just a all around two stupid articles, two stupid interviews. Pete Alonso's was worse just because he was being an idiot.
So where do we think this goes from here, though? Do we think pitchers are going to get caught more, or do you think because like the MLB is going to put the hammer down and start doing inspections or something, or do we think pitchers are kind of going to be a little bit more scared now and they're not going to cheat as much? Because like I mentioned earlier, we saw Garrett Cole in this last start, lowest spin rate he's had in a start in the last 2 seasons, while he still dominated. I mean, it wasn't like his typical spin rate, like I just said, by a pretty dramatic amount. And he did let up 2 home runs, which or 2 earned runs, or no, it was 2 home runs, which he typically doesn't do in a start either. So, where do you think we see pitchers going from here? Are they going to kind of back down a little bit and stop using substances, do you think? Or are they going to try and hide it more? Or do you think that we're going to see guys start getting caught more and more and more now?
I think I can only answer it one way, and it is that it depends on who the pitcher is because I'm going to use it in a comparison. Javier Baez will never get suspended unless he punches somebody in the face. That's the truth, right? We both know that because we watch him when he plays our teams and just how pure of a dick he truly is. But if Jacob DeGrom's spin rate goes down and he gives up 6 runs in his start, say it's tomorrow, in his start tomorrow, they're going to email him or somebody's going to be like, yo, you're a face of baseball. You're good. We'll never check you.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole may never get checked. Verlander may never get checked. Clayton Kershaw may never get checked. But Sonny Gray or Mitch Keller or Yu Darvish or Blake Snell, those guys will get checked because they can go with those guys being on the bench for 10 games. You can't put Garrett Cole on a 10-game suspension and people watch baseball.
Yeah.
There's at least 2 games where somebody's going to be like, I'm not watching this game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the pitcher. And that's kind of the way I think I have to go about it is Garrett Cole, Verlander, Kershaw, Bauer will never get touched. Everybody else, I think, is fair game. Just like Tatis, Acuna, and Baez are never to be touched. Everybody else is fair game.
Yeah. And the sad part is there's just no trust in the MLB from
No,
players to owners to the league. Like it's
no,
just like everybody fending for themselves, which is really sad. Because you see in
it's
the
terrible.
NBA, Adam Silver and the owners work hand in hand with
Yeah,
players. In the NFL, even though some of the guys don't get along with Roger Goodell, the majority of the people get along with their owners for sure, and then still can get along with Goodell and stuff. But in the MLB, there's just no trust or anything in the chain of command
yeah,
at all, which is just not a good game
because
plan at all.
Rob Manfred freaking sucks. He's terrible,
Yeah, he is.
and most of the GMs don't do anything for their teams. Nothing.
No.
You
So
get a high market team, and they just go buy players. You get a low market team, and you're stuck with what you got until you have to pay them more, and then you have to trade them. Me and
yeah.
you would know that
Oh yeah.
because you got to pawn players off to get something back that isn't even close to the level of what you had,
Exactly. So
and it's just
yeah. So right now we're seeing baseball where the offense is on a bit of a downswing, which is kind of why I think the whole pitching thing got brought up because offensive numbers are down and they were trying to find something to put it on, which ended up becoming these foreign substances. So do you think baseball is better off having last year where people thought they were doctoring baseballs to add more home runs to bring more excitement and offensive everywhere, or more of this year where there's a lot more like pitching duels and defensive? Me personally, growing up playing baseball, I love like the 2-1, 3-2, 4-3 games at the tops. I didn't necessarily always enjoy the 7-8 games, 10-9, and things like that because I don't think that's like real baseball per se, but that does sell better in like the eye of
oh
like the
yeah,
public.
oh yeah.
But what's just kind of your take on that?
My take is watching runs come across the plate and watching home runs is outstanding. It's a very it's a feeling that's not the same as watching a touchdown or a dunk. It's just so different from anything else. Is watching a guy swing, make solid contact, and the ball just fly over the fence while they pimp it. You know, that's in that's funny. It's a great thing. It's cool to watch, but it would be more memorable if it didn't happen as much.
Hmm.
And to
Like
me,
oversaturation. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And to me, 2-1 games going into the ninth, I won't turn the TV off. I don't care if it's Cleveland and uh, Boston. It doesn't matter who it is. If I turn by it or I get an alert on my phone that there's a no, you turn to that game. You don't turn to the game that guys have 4 home runs going for their fifth because it's like, no, he's not going to get that. They're not going to pitch to him. Like we know that, you
Yeah.
know, teams don't want to get burnt. But those no-nos you turn to, the one hitters, the shutouts, those games you turn to because it's exciting to see if the other team can score a run. And if you
Hmm.
turn baseball back to that kind of baseball, you're going to get a lot more people in. And I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not inner cities, but the cities of those teams. You're going to get a lot more traction there because it's
Yeah, the local
competitive.
markets.
Yeah, it's way more competitive because look at the Yankees last year. They would score 6 to 7 runs a game. You know, it's exciting to watch, but if nobody else can put up 6 runs, it's like, hey, we got this one,
Yeah.
and then you just know which pitcher is going to lose. So it's like that's not like a fun
Well, and it
like
also
that's not a
takes
fun
out
thing to watch.
yeah, it also takes out the intensity, like watching, like, oh, this is a close game. Like a home run here is going to
Yeah,
be huge, or if a run scores, you're like, that's
yeah,
massive for a game. Not, oh, it's another home run. That's like the seventh run of the game. Like, whoop de doo.
yeah. It's the third inning. It's 10-10. Nice. You know, I mean, there's just it's dumb. We watch 11 run first innings that would have never happened in the 80s and 90s. Would
Yeah,
have never happened. You know, watching Frank Thomas hit a home run was awesome because when he did it, it meant something to the game. When Griffey
yeah,
Jr. hit a double off the wall or robbed a home run or made a diving catch, those were cool to watch because they didn't happen all the time. If that ball got down, it meant a run may have scored or there was
yeah,
something on the other end that would have been a negative. And now it's not. If you dive past the ball, oh, it's 6-7 now, or it's 9-9. We'll get them back in the bottom half. You know, it's not
yeah.
like it doesn't have that same effect of dang. this run means something because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean anything anymore because you know that you can go get one yourself. Like,
Yeah.
that's not baseball. That's basically tennis, where somebody's guaranteed a point every turn. I mean, not trying to be funny, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's guaranteed a point on every time the ball's put in play is tennis. Baseball is not a guaranteed sport. You're supposed to fail more times than you succeed, and we are not watching that. And
Yeah.
it's just like, what are we doing with this sport, Rob? Figure it out, Rob.
Oh, that can
You're
transition
gonna
to a
piss me
base.
off.
That can transition into a baseball that's probably getting run a lot better and a lot of
No, I
traction
got one
lately.
question.
Oh,
I got
one
one
more.
question
All
before
right.
we jump to college baseball. So I want to ask you this, and this is strictly not because he's on my team, not because anything else, because numbers. American League MVP right now in your head, who is it?
AL MVP right now.
Yeah,
Ooh, that is tough. Put me on the spot here.
yeah,
So if you're looking at the AL, um, I think right now, I could be wrong. I think odds wise, which is interesting, but I think it's because the story too. I think Shohei's number one odds wise, betting
mm-hmm.
wise,
Okay,
because yeah, he's valuable, but it's also an easy way to trick the public into putting money on Shohei when I don't really think that he's going to win the MVP. But then
yeah,
you have guys like Vladdy Guerrero Jr., who's putting up insane numbers. You have JD Martinez. Um, Sadly, Mike Trout's going to be hurt too long to be able. He used to
yeah.
always be the easy answer, but he's going to be
Yeah,
hurt
he can.
a
Well, it's
little bit.
exciting though now, like a little bit. Like, I hate it's not exciting that he's hurt, but it's exciting to kind of take time to look at somebody else. But no numbers, based off what you know, who do you think the MVP in the AL is so far? I give it to Vladimir. I give it to Vladdy Jr. Easy.
Yeah, see, the thing that's tough with me, which I don't think this matters in baseball as many as other sports, is you've got to look at like where their record stands and their winning percentage. And if you look at the top guys in the AL that are up for the MVP, their teams aren't necessarily winning, which is what makes it hard. Because you have
Yeah,
Shohei Ohtani up there, but the Angels aren't really good. You have Vladdy there, but Toronto's a three or fourth team in their division. And I mean, you've got guys like Bogarts, maybe some people would argue Buxton, but like these teams just aren't like competitive, which is what makes it really hard. But I can't really disagree with you there. I mean, I don't think Xander Bogaerts is going to win MVP, even though he's had a really good year. He's just
yeah,
not. JD Martinez has had a great year. He's a DH. He's not going to get it. I mean, I don't think they'll give it to Shohei just because of how crappy their record is. So, I mean, I guess you kind of got to go with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. there. It's just hard because all of the guys that are good aren't necessarily on like good teams,
yeah.
which is just,
I would tend to agree.
yeah, which just makes it extremely hard.
So let me ask you this now. Both the teams have the same record, 29-31. Both of
Mhm.
them are like the same play. One's in third place because their division's worse. One's in fourth place because the division's better. Um, Ronald Acuna and Jesse Winker. If you had to right now today give the MVP to one of them, who would you give it to?
I'm gonna go with Ronald Acuna Jr.
Okay, why? Like, I'm just curious.
I just feel like I know Jesse Winkler's a good player at all, but I don't think it's Ronald Acuna's fault that the Braves are where they're at. Well, first
Yeah,
of all, they do. I don't know. I just think Ronald Acuna he adds that spark. He's got that flair, and I don't know. I feel like he's just. I feel like if he wasn't on that Braves team, they would. I don't know.
yeah, but I
It's
think you
tough.
could say the same exact thing
I
for
know that's
Jesse.
what
It's
I
not
keep
his
saying
fault
in
they
my
suck,
head, and I'm like, well,
and
if
it's
he's not
not
on that
like,
team, yeah.
yeah, if he wasn't on the Reds, we would not be 29 wins.
No, I don't
You
know.
know,
I just
so
but
that's what's
but
tough.
Acuna's done it more too than like Winker has. Like Winker's never put up numbers like this before. We've seen Acuna been able to put numbers somewhat close to this and show that he can be like the best player on a really good team.
Yeah, but Acuna has not hit 346 through 2 months of the year
No,
ever.
but I mean there's more than batting average that goes into the
Yeah.
MVP.
Well, I know, but they're both hitting 17 and 18 home runs. He's got him by one. Jesse Winker has 18 more hits. He has the same number of doubles, the same number of triples, two less runs. same number of RBIs, less walks because he's got more hits, less strikeouts, 0 stolen bases. That's the only thing Acuna's got. And then he's just hitting better all around except for on base percentages. Wait, no. Yeah, he's basically the better baseball player right now. So, obviously he's on my team. I would pick him, but, 346, 413, 645, and 1057 compared to 278, 389, 600, and 989. It's very hard. It's very hard not to say Jesse Winker.
Yeah, it's hard. I think the Braves too are just extremely underperforming. I don't think it'd really be a question if they were another 5 or 6 games over 500.
Yeah, but I think it'd be even less though of a question because I think Jesse would take it even more if they were 5 games ahead of where they are and he was still hitting this way. Because Freddie Freeman to me is the MVP of that team consistently, except for right now he is definitely less of the Freddie Freeman than we're used to. But Freddie's the GOAT of that team and the face still to me until he leaves.
Yeah.
Ronald's the young face, Freddie's the old face.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, hey, college baseball, we gotta love it. Steve, your intros, your little introduction, you can start over. We're good now.
Yeah, so we are now going to go over into where some of these MLB players were before if they didn't get drafted out of high school or out of a different country in college baseball. So we are now down to the Super Regionals where we've got Arkansas, NC State, Texas, South Florida, Mississippi State, Notre Dame, Texas Tech, Stanford, Arizona, Ole Miss, Virginia, Dallas Baptist, LSU and Tennessee, and ECU and Vanderbilt. First off, before you kind of go in depth, what's your series you're most looking forward to?
Oh man, most looking forward to?
Yeah.
Oh man, give me a second. I'm looking. Based on even match and just pure baseball numbers, Virginia and Dallas Baptist is not a bad one to look out for. I think that's going to be a fun series. But I'm really excited for the Notre Dame Mississippi State.
Okay.
And it's really hard not to be excited. Mississippi State scored 100 more runs, but the averages are the ERAs are right on par. The stolen bases are right on par. The home runs are 5 apart. So, there's a lot of things there that could be sneaky for Notre Dame to take over. I still think Mississippi State takes that series, but I think Notre Dame's a good one. Mm-hmm. That Ole Miss Arizona series is going to be good. Arizona was a sneaky good team at the end of the year. Made a lot of push in the end. Stanford and Texas Tech is going to be a good one. But I think the one that I'm least excited for and the one that I truly think is going to end in 2 games is USF and Texas. I don't think NC State and Arkansas is going to be a competitive series. And then I don't think LSU and Tennessee is going to be a competitive series. So, I guess with the LSU and Tennessee, that'll kind of ask question. So, I'm curious on what you think. We'll start Arkansas and NC State. I'll read them to you, and then you tell me. You kind of pick who you think will be your College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay. Arkansas, NC State, 49-11, 33-17, decently even match. It's going to be a hard call, honestly. What do you think?
I think Arkansas definitely gets past NC State.
Okay. Texas Tech at 8, Stanford's 9, 39-15, 36-15. Texas Tech has every category except for average by .003.
Yeah, I'm going to get Texas Tech on that one.
Okay. Arizona and Ole Miss, 43-15, 44-20. It's a pretty even split, 4-4 in the categories. It's going to be a good series. What do you think?
I'm going to go Ole Miss on that one.
Oh, okay.
They've got the good juju right now, especially with Elko with the torn ACL going off still. Yeah.
I like it. Vandy, ECU, 43-15, 44-15. Average is the same, very evenly matched, except for stolen bases. But what do you think?
So this was one of the matchups I was most excited for because I mean they're
Yeah.
both really good teams. But the issue I think is I just think Vandy's guys are just overall way better than ECU's guys, even though like they're both really good teams. But I'm gonna go with Vandy on this one, but I'm extremely excited for this series
Good
more than
call.
most.
Yeah. Texas and South Florida, 45-15, 31-28. Texas has every category except for Ks per nine. I think it's fairly simple to say,
Yeah,
fairly easy decision.
Texas is gonna take that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Mississippi State, Notre Dame, 53-15, 33-11. Pretty evenly matched team. I mean, I kind of went into this a little bit more earlier. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Mississippi State. I've been riding with
Okay.
them all year, and I'm gonna keep going.
All right. All right. We got two left. Virginia and Dallas Baptist, 33-24 and 40-16. Dallas Baptist has 5 of the 8 categories. So, and their home runs are 50 more. Their average is 20. 0.028 or 0.024 better. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Virginia on that one. They played an ACC schedule, which is harder, I think, than what DBU's played. And also, if you look at their regionals, Oregon State's not the same team that they were. McNeese is not. I mean, obviously they made it, but that's not a powerhouse program. And yeah, they got by with TCU, but Virginia played a very competitive SEC South Carolina team and an insanely offensive team in Old Dominion and made it past both of them. So I'm gonna go with Virginia.
I'm going to be honest, just because it makes me, I got to go Dallas Baptist. Um, Tennessee and LSU. Tennessee has every category except for case per nine. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Tennessee on that one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy. I'm going to go back over yours and then what I think. See, so Tennessee out of Tennessee and LSU, I'm also going to take that. Virginia and Dallas Baptist, you took Virginia. I'm going to take Dallas Baptist. Mississippi State, Notre Dame, you took Mississippi State. I'm going to take Mississippi State as well. I think it's just a better team. Texas and Southern Florida, you took Texas. I'm also going to go with Texas. That's a pretty easy decision. Vandy, ECU, you took Vandy. I'm going to pull off. I'm going to say a huge upset and go with ECU just as one
Wow.
underdog pick. Um, Arizona, Ole Miss. I'm going to go Arizona. I think Arizona ends the juju. I just think they're too good. Honestly, I just do. I don't think home runs are going to play a big of a factor in this series as they have been because it's not in. Um, Man, it's not at Ole Miss. It's a
No.
Tucson region, super regional. So it'll
That's
be
another thing.
interesting.
Virginia's going to have a lot more fans in Columbia than Dallas Baptist is.
Yeah, probably. Uh, Texas Tech and Stanford. I'm also going to go with Texas Tech, as did you. And then Arkansas and NC State. You went Arkansas. I'm going to go Arkansas also. I think a favorite to win the whole thing is Arkansas. So to cover it, we have Arkansas, Texas Tech, both of the Arizona and Ole Miss, Vandy and ECU, Texas, Mississippi State, Virginia and Dallas Baptist, Tennessee. You have to pick one of those to win your College World Series right now. Who is it?
Right now. All right. So,
Yep. Right now, going in, who wins the College World Series?
um, I mean, I have it narrowed down between Arkansas and Vanderbilt in my head that it's going to be one of those two. It's kind of just picking which one. And I'm gonna go with Vanderbilt. I'm gonna go with
Okay.
Vanderbilt. I like their pitching. I don't think you. I mean, you have Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker as a 1-2 punch for your starters. I mean, I don't know too many teams that are gonna win two out of. They're gonna have to win at least one of those games, if not both of them, to take the series. And I don't know if I see any team being able to do that if they're both on.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And Enrique Banfield is huge. He had,
Yeah.
oh, he's really good at baseball. He's really good. He's just really good. Their lineup, top to bottom, is good. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I'm going to go two teams that aren't Vandy nor Arkansas.
Okay.
I'm going to go Tennessee and Texas.
All right.
That's who I believe is going to fight for it, and I think it purely comes down to their pitching. The ERA is 2.87 for Texas, which is an outstanding team. Really, it's if I'm not wrong, it's the lowest of the Super Regionals. So I think that's going to help them a ton. I also think Tennessee is, like you said, with Ole Miss riding the juju. I think Tennessee is on cloud 9 right now with Tony DeVito, and just that whole team is playing really good baseball right now. After they after that game 1 walk off, they turned it on and just started playing baseball the right way. And I think Tony DeVito's got them where they need to be to compete for that World Series this year. So I'm going Tennessee, Texas, and then I'm going to go Texas to win it.
Okay. Finally, Texas might bring a championship back and something and back up all that smack they talk in every single sport. Hook 'em horns.
I think if they're going to do it, it's this year.
Yeah, because it's not going to be football. It ain't going to be basketball. So it's got to be baseball or softball.
I guess.
I'm excited, though, for Omaha.
Oh,
Omaha is always, like, such a cool thing to watch. And no offense to college softball, but I'm ready for college baseball to start dominating ESPN and ESPN2 for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it'll be here. And I'm excited for that. But I will say, in all accounts, it was a very, very good softball World Series this year. So I was okay with that taking over since we got knocked out. So
yeah, can't say I watched a single minute of that, but
I've
just been watching basketball. I've just been watching basketball and hockey, as you know. So
JMU caught my eye in the game 1 with a diving tag at the plate. So I was like, I gotta watch some more of this.
Yeah, Alabama pitching was very good this year too.
It was pretty good. They dominate from the circle, if you will. Oh man, that was not an underlying joke for people that are listening. It was just good at softball. It was good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Better than most.
A lot better than most, actually. But that, I think, is going to end it for us tonight. You got anything else?
Yeah, no, that's better probably cut this off now before going
before
too far down that road. Yeah, so that is going to end up the pickup for today. Covered basketball, college baseball, MLB, just the foreign substance. Tomorrow we'll go more into depth about some other baseball stuff. We'll have some NFL talk as well, and I'll probably touch a little bit on where we're at in the hockey playoffs right now too tomorrow. So like I said, it's going to wrap it up. Audio will be out Thursday night. So when you wake up on Friday, it will be there, and then video will probably be out Friday evening or Friday night. And yeah, so for Drew Hartman, I'm Stephen Biddix. We're clocking out, and we will see you guys next time.